I had been taking a class 4 narcotic diet pill. It's called phentermine, and I was doing so with a goal of losing weight. I had this feeling for many years that I didn't fit in, and I was always doing everything I could, people pleaser, to try to change that feeling. And that void just kept growing bigger and bigger. It seems like no matter what I did. But taking the diet pill took it to a physiologic level that this was starting to compromise my body. The pill was designed to be taken under doctor supervision for about 4 months to a year at the most. And I found a physician that prescribed it to me for nearly 9 years. And some of the biggest side effects of the medication is you don't eat, you don't sleep, and when you stop doing those things on a regular basis, for years, your neurons start to misfire, your body starts having problems. You see organs and things breaking down, not working like they should. One of the problems that started becoming really evident to me the last few months before I had my near-death experience was I had a problem with breathing with my lungs. If I would lay down for too long of a period of time or sit still, it was almost like my brain was forgetting to tell my lungs how to open and close to breathe to get air. And I found that like I would have to jump up and down, do something very physical to get my body to remember to get my lungs to open and close, and started getting really terrifying towards the end. Um, and I got this impending doom just days before that I died, that when that would happen to me at some point, I would lose consciousness and I wouldn't wake up again. I would die. I guess what I'm trying to say is I had this knowing for a long time before I died that day that I was on borrowed time if I didn't make a change. And I kept having these conversations with God that, God, I know I shouldn't be doing this. And it was a secret that I hid from everybody. My husband didn't know, my family didn't know about the pills, but I was addicted to them. And I'd never had an addiction problem. But once you have a problem like that in your life, it's really amazing. It was amazing to me now looking back how it completely determined everything I did in my life was for that medication. For some reason, I thought I had to have it. That feeling, I didn't think I could not take it. But anyway, I kept bargaining with God. I know this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this, and I see what it's doing to my body. But if I'll stop taking it, next week, for example. So I was doing this bargaining thing towards the last, few weeks before it happened. And, it just started tumbling out of control, my health. It was so bad that to the point that the day that I died, I knew I had this sense that I was going to die. And logically, a logical person in their right mind would say, well, tell somebody, tell your husband, tell anybody, call 911, get the help that you need. And knowing that I I just didn't make that choice. And looking back now, um, I guess logically I should say that I regret it, but because of what happened to me when I died and I went on to have this near-death experience, I actually am really grateful that what happened to me happened because it actually took me dying to wake up. There were so many things I had wrong, I guess is what I'm trying to say. While I was here on this planet, until the day that I died, and the lessons that I learned, during this near-death experience, which I'll share with you guys, it's just changed every ounce of my being, and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be here now to share the story that I did get sent back. Um, and so I guess I want to start with when I took my last breath. Um, the last thing I remember saying and witnesses hearing me say was, I believe in God. And at that moment, I took that last breath and I collapsed to the floor. I left my body. And the very next thing I remember is I am on the ceiling and I'm looking down and I'm watching paramedics come running into this room where there was two witnesses there. Um, staying with me until the paramedics got there to help me. And I remember looking at that shell on the floor, my human body, and knowing that that was me. But, you know, realizing at the same time, for the first time, I could breathe. And this was really me. This vastness. I didn't have a confinement of a shell. And so when I had left to be able to envelop, it was like I had access to so many more senses that I don't even know what these senses would be called, but it was more than, smell, sight, touch, hearing, feeling, those kind of things. These were things, it was like on steroids, I guess, all of those things happening at once. And so I'm watching it unfold and the paramedics, um, trying to help my body and having this admiration for those people that cared enough to try to help me, but knowing that I had no desire to go back. I had absolutely no desire to go back into that body. First of all, I didn't even know how I would because it seemed so confining and limiting. Um, and so I just remember having a love and appreciation and wishing them well, and then feeling on the right side of me an angel, but I didn't get to see it. It was such a strong presence that it was like I couldn't look upon it with my eyes, but feeling it and feeling it pull me into a tunnel. And this tunnel that I was put into was completely light filled tunnel. And we started traveling together at a supersonic speed going up. And the tunnel had a life force that enveloped me, and it was love. And I knew what it felt like to have and experience love as human. But again, referring to those heightens when your senses are on steroids. And it was love had a life force of itself. And it was all through the tunnel. And it seemed to be what was perpetuating us and making us actually move that fast was this love life force, if you will. And this angel stayed with me the whole time. And it seemed like, and that's the other thing is as I'm talking about my experience, talk about the word time, and all I can tell you is that time does not exist when you leave your body or when I left my body, in the way that we know what time is. Humans have made this thing called time, and that's what we all live by, but it's not like that there. So I was traveling in this tunnel for what felt like years, like a very long time to humans. It was exhilarating. It was wonderful. And honestly, if nothing else happened after that, and I just only had the tunnel experience, that was enough because I got this sense that I was home. I was finally home. I recognized and knew this feeling that was encompassing me. How could I know that when supposedly, I'm just human. I'm here on planet Earth, right? So it was having this knowing of something that you don't remember feeling or being there before. And that I had that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm going home. So finally, we get to what I see. It looks like the clearing of the end of the tunnel, and it looks like space, the black with all the stars. And growing up in Nebraska in the middle, in the country, not in the city, I was really lucky because I absolutely love the stars. And because there wasn't all the city lights out in the country, you could see so many stars. And I remember getting to that clearing and just being so excited because it was like that love that I had of being able to see all of the stars, but I was there with the stars at that point and not just, observing them from such afar. I was in it. And the life force that it was so profound. At that point, the angel left my right side, and then God was there. I did not see God physically at that time, but I knew that God was with me. It was this knowing that I had since I was a child. Since I was a child, I was raised in a family of, we went to church more than once a week, Wednesdays, a lot of times, and Sundays. And so God and Jesus were like household family members to me, this relationship that I had. And I had a connection, a very strong connection since I was a child of being able to communicate and feel a lot of love with God. And over the years, um, starting at 12 years old, when I was bulimic for 12 years, and then I went on to taking the diet pills, doing those kinds of things to my body. The more things that I did like that and focused on mankind and the ego side of mankind and what was important, it was like I was stifling God's voice and that connection that I had as a child. And so it was incredible because it was almost like I had lost that feeling connection until that moment again when I'm in the stars and I'm with God. And I knew it was God because I remembered that feeling and that knowing since I was a child. When I didn't live in the ego, I didn't know better. And so it was so profound to me because I was home and I felt so much love, so much love. Like I don't even have human words to give it the magnitude it deserves, but it was more love than I'd ever felt and known. And at that moment that God and I are standing together, I remember looking out at the stars in front of me and noticing that they started doing something kind of strange. They were lining up and they lined up and they made a very, very big curtain, like at a movie theater, a huge movie theater in the old days when they had the curtains and then the curtains would part and then you'd see the movie screen. So I saw this, it looked like a movie theater curtain of stars, and I hear this noise in my left ear, and it's the whirring of a vintage movie theater projector, and that flap is hitting it, and when it's going to start the movie, and I hear the whirring, and I watch the curtain, and it starts to open, and then I see the life review of Erica Makenzie, and the very first thing on the screen was my mom in the hospital, and she was holding me. I had just been born. So God and I proceeded to have this life review that was a movie. And I started seeing everything from the day that I was born until the day that I died. And I died at 31 years old. During this life review, the things that I saw, interestingly enough, were things that, looking back now, we would probably consider them to be milestones of accomplishment in mankind's eyes. For example, um, losing a tooth in my first tooth in first grade, winning a spelling bee in third grade, graduating from eighth grade, becoming a cheerleader, um, getting different kinds of awards for sports and music and theater and all those things, graduating from high school, going to college, graduating from college, getting married, having children, those kind of things. So there was a theme. And I'm getting closer to at the end of this life review. And mind you, again, I want to refer to time because time didn't exist as we knew it. And yet, the best way I can describe it is each day that I saw in this first life review was like living it again. So it was like living 31 years again. As God and I are watching this unfold together, I have so much love from God as God's showing me all of these things. And I remember getting closer to that 31 years. And then I started panicking because I was raised to believe that we were all sinners. And if you sinned, there's a good chance you're going to go to hell. And if you don't go to hell, you're definitely going to have to account for, your sins and be punished and those kind of things. And so before I died, I was really terrified of dying for that reason. Because why? Well, yeah, I was a sinner for sure. For sure. I had messed up so much that it was really stressful to me that I was just sure that when I died, God would have that lightning bolt and probably just strike it on me and I deserved it. That's what I was raised to feel. And so having that mindset, even though all of these things that I had seen up to that point were positive, loving, wonderful things, um, I started to have this human moment of panic, sheer and utter terror that, oh my God, we're almost to the end. Oh my gosh, why hasn't God shown me any of these things that I know I've done, I've messed up, that are horrible, that are negative? Why am I not being punished? Why is he not talking about these things? So I'm having that. human feeling. And in that moment, we get to the very end, still didn't see anything negative, and instead, God enveloped and He held me, and He filled me with more love than you can even imagine. So much love. There was one point that I thought I was going to completely burst because I didn't know if I could receive any more of this incredible love. And so to me, that was just huge because, like I said, when you live 31 years thinking it's one way and then all of a sudden it's not, that doesn't happen. It was just a huge revelation. Well, if we were done, I would say that was lessons that, are just enough for a lifetime. But what happened next was all of a sudden in front of me appeared a pair of eyeglasses. And at that time, I had never worn glasses. I had perfect vision. And these weren't normal glasses. These eyeglasses were the size of a small vehicle, and they were right in front of me. And the way God and I communicated was telepathically. So if I thought a thought, God was replacing it with the answers. I look at those glasses and my thoughts are, I knew I was supposed to put them on, but it was impossible because they were so big. And as I'm having that feeling, God replaces it with the answer and says, with Him, all things are possible. And as soon as he said that, I felt my hands drawing near to the glasses and grabbing them and pulling them close to my face. And by the time I got them to my face and put them on, they fit me perfectly, just like these. And that in and of itself was just profound because I knew that I was not as big as as a small vehicle. Even though I didn't have my human shell, I still had this perception of how my true size, 5'4", human size. And so that was just so amazing to me. And then God said, now look. And as soon as he said that, I saw the stars lining up again like a curtain. And I heard that projector noise in my left ear, the whirring again. And I saw the stars part. And then my heart started beating through my chest because I was like, oh my God, now I have God's glasses on. Now I can see. And I was terrified because I knew that I was not going to see at all what I saw the first time. And here I'm having it happen again, right? The stars part, the same picture of my mom holding me in the hospital, right? It starts again, except for this time, everything else was different. This time, what I saw were the things that were important to God, not to mankind. And so they were things that there was one common theme, and it was love. So I remember the very first memory of it. One was I was in kindergarten, I was in Brownies, and we were at the rest home singing Christmas carols, and they couldn't find me. And then somebody went into one of the residents' rooms, and I was sitting on this woman's lap in her wheelchair, and I was brushing her hair, and I was singing "Jesus Loves Me." And there was so much love exchange that I was giving to this woman who needed love. And to be able to see it and as a spectator almost, but it's you, but then to feel it and understand how powerful the love connection is while we are here. And so I proceeded to go through the whole 31 years of my life again and seeing all of the things that I had done and how love impacted, whether it was animals, people, situations, multiple situations. Very profound because, like I said, every day I lived it like it was a day. So it was like, here's another 31 years that I'm up here, but this is what I'm seeing now with God's glasses on. And by the time we started getting close to the end, I started having this impending anxiety of feeling of doom, feeling again of the ego human side being, I was raised to believe that I would have to justify and be punished for my sins. I know I'm a sinner, and now I have God's glasses on, and He put them on me because also I need to understand how bad I was, is what I'm thinking. This is the human side. And it's got to be coming because I know I sinned. So it's going to be really bad. And I remember having that feeling. And again, getting to that day that I died and not being judged by God. But isn't that what we all do while we're here on earth? Don't people judge everybody? Oh, you don't have enough money. Oh, you look like that. I'm going to judge you for that. Whatever. Oh, your opinion is this. Oh, you're a Democrat. Oh, you're a Republican. Whatever. I don't care. We know judgment. I will use myself. I was guilty of judging. But I learned in that moment with God's glasses on, and God told me, none of us are qualified to judge. The only qualification that we have while we are here is to love. And if God didn't judge me, then who do I think I am, this lowly human sinner of a being, to be able to have the power to judge myself or anyone else? We don't. And that in and of itself, that lesson right there, it just spoke volumes to me because of the decisions I had made in my life, letting others judge me and making, and that made my decisions to do a lot of things when I shouldn't have let that happen. And so there it was this huge teaching moment, and um at the same time was filled with love and appreciation, and how much God loved me and how much God loves each of us. And so we get done with that lesson, and I'm thinking, I'm done and we're going to go into heaven now or whatever, because I am still trying to go over everything that I've learned in these both two life reviews, how significant and important they really were. And we weren't done yet because God told me, look to your right. So I looked to my right, and then that's when the lesson of the rippling effect, is what I call it, happened next. This is the only time during this whole experience with God in heaven that I was able to see God in a physical form. And the only part that I could see was I saw from his tip of his finger, I don't know if you can see from here, all the way to the arm. So I saw that whole part. And I try to tell people, again, I use vehicles because just to give them an idea of the different size perspectives. From the tip of the finger to the arm, it looked like the size of a semi truck. That's how big it was to me. And it was right in front of me. And I could feel the life in his arm. And I'm looking at the palm of his hand. And all of a sudden, in the palm of his hand appears a huge single rock. And that rock was the size of a small vehicle, a small car. And I remember just admiring his hand and this rock, and I knew it was important. And as soon as I was fixated on it, this light being able to shine, it shined from every orifice of that rock. And it was so blinding that I could barely look upon it. And that light was a love force that was so strong. I knew that that light had the ability to, like, it could cut through anything. It was laser light strong, like nothing I'd ever seen. And God said, you are the rock, you are the light. The light is of me, and I am with you. And as soon as he said that, he turned his hand and let go of the rock. And I started to watch this rock, and it fell. And it fell for what seemed to be, again, quite a long time. And I'm looking out in front of me, watching this rock falling. And all of a sudden, a huge body of water, like the biggest ocean you can imagine. You can't see the borders of it, you can't see the land. It's so vast. And there's this water, and we're watching this single rock fall. And eventually, that rock gets to the water, and it plunges with such a force into the water that it makes this huge eruption. And yet only one single ripple formed from it. And that ripple grew and it grew and it grew. And I watched it keep growing until that single ripple, you couldn't see the border of that anymore. And God went on to explain to me like that ripple affects that whole body of water, so too does man's words, actions, and thoughts affect all of mankind. And I understood in that moment that it wasn't just Erica's the rock, Erica's the light. Each and every one of us, if we are alive and here on this planet, are the rock. And we all are the light. The light is of God, our creator. But here's where we get to choose. We get to choose while we're here if we're going to let that light shine or not. We're still going to make that impact and that ripple. We're going to affect everyone with our thoughts, words, and actions. But if you have that love light on while you're doing it, that's when you will do profound, wonderful, incredible things that can change the world in a positive way. If you do not have that light on and you choose not to have that light, you're still going to make that impact and you're still going to affect others and that ripple, but it will be a negative way. And we all think that we're so insignificant. How can one person, why do you try so hard? You're never going to make a difference. You're just one person. You can't change the world. Let me just tell you that lesson showed me how we can change the world. And it's up to us, if we choose to shine that light, to come together with other people and to empower and embrace each other, our differences, and let our light shine together. And then together, we can change things, really change things. And love is the answer. And it was just things that seem like, we should all know it. It should all make sense. We should all just be doing this and everything. But I look at my life and the things that I did to end up being there and having to learn something that I think I knew coming in as a child and I had stifled. And so that was really profound to me. And again, I thought, okay, this is unbelievable. I'm trying to go back over this and I just want to make sure that I'm retaining as much as I can because I know it's important. And then God said to look to my right again. And that's when we had the lesson of the gifts. And this time when I'm looking out in front of me in the galaxy, there was shelves and they were like glowing luminescent white and they almost took on like they were alive, a life force. And they were, if I looked down, the shelves went down as far as my eyes could see into the stars. And when I looked all the way up, shelves kept on going until I couldn't see past the stars. When I looked out in front of me in the galaxy and planets, shelves kept on going. And then I turned behind me and the shelves kept on going. So that's how many shelves and how big it was. And then I remember just looking at these shelves and then is all at once these presents like gifts at Christmas when you have them under the tree and they're all wrapped, filled the shelves. There was not one space available left because they had taken up the space on all of these shelves. And I'm sitting here looking at all of these gifts and noticing that, wow, this is crazy. Like not one is even remotely the same. How can you have this many, and none are the same, not even like a little bit the same, wrapping, nothing. And just feeling that is just profound in and of itself. How can there be that many? And so God said, when you were born, I gave you gifts. He said, I gave you the gift of patience and I gave you the gift of beauty. And this is where I argued with God, which who does that? But it just came out of my mouth. And I remember cutting God off and saying, no, 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 wait a minute, God. You didn't give me the gift of beauty because I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't, good enough. All those things that I did was because I was trying to fit in. I was trying to get people to like me. I was trying to be enough and it wasn't. And he stopped me and he said, when you were born, I gave you the gift of patience and I gave you the gift of beauty. And in that moment, I realized for the first time what the gift of beauty really meant. It came from within my heart. It came from within my heart. That's where the beauty was. And God told me, when each and every one of you are born, I give you all gifts, each and every one of you. And he said, and do you know what? He said, I actually have more gifts for all of you. And do you know how you get them? And I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea. I'm sitting here looking at all of these gifts on the shelves. And he said, all you have to do is ask. But then you must be quiet and listen to receive them. That was a huge lesson for me. I can't tell you how many times through this whole experience with God that I was told to always make sure that I be quiet and listen. It was really going to be important, not just for me, but I find out, for all of us. Um, and so we went on to have this long lesson about how, each and every one of us is unique. We have our own fingerprints, right? I mean, we know that science has taught us that no one has the same fingerprint. That's vital. Our uniqueness is our value, and our value is our contribution here on our earthly journey. And part of us living our lives is learning about the gifts that we have and the gifts that God wants to still give us, and how we get those and how we bring these gifts together and use them on our mission while we're here. And then the bigger, more important part is, how do we take our gifts like like a big puzzle, and come together with people like you, other people with their gifts and their uniqueness, not stifling them, embracing and empowering them and their uniqueness, and bring them together and work together with these gifts and change things, because that's how it works and that's how it's designed. It's never designed for the ego driven, oh, it's all about me, I'm going to accomplish this and this and this. We're all missing it. To be able to use it to the magnitude of the blueprints that God has designed and unlock it all, it's all about working together. So it was really profound. And it's still hard to put human words to how everything was shown to me, but I can't stress to you enough how I knew it was so important. I was hoping I was staying in heaven, but the other part of me was thinking, gosh, if I have to go back, I have to be able to remember how to convey this to other people, because this is the answer. Love is the answer. And the way that God is explaining all of this is how to tap in to, this blueprint and to make all of this work, and just feeling like this responsibility of trying to make sure I remember everything. So the only time I was told to look to my left during this experience was for this last lesson that I had. And that was the earth in flames, is what I call it. And God had told me to look to my left. And as I look down to my left and looking out, I see planet Earth. And it was the most incredible thing you would ever know. It's like being right there, on the earth, but seeing it in a way that we as humans, while we're living here, can't see and appreciate it. And I am just really relishing the fact of how much I have loved the planet and living on the planet, and love living as a human, and loved being able to have a family. And I remember thinking about, my husband and my children, and my kids were like 3 and 6 at the time. So they were little. And I gave up a career when they were little, because the most important thing to me, if we could afford to, was I really wanted to stay home and be with my kids. It's just something inside of me that's what I had always wanted to do, was be a mom. And so what kind of a mom would not want to go back to their kids if that's the most important thing to you? But I came to understand in that moment that there's a bridge, and it is very real, and it does exist. between heaven and earth at all times. And so my kids, my family, everybody that I knew and I loved on earth, even though they were there and I was in heaven, we were together. And I could see it for the first time. Not only could I see it, I felt it. It was all through me. And I had this peace and everything was fine. And so I had no desire to physically go back there at the time because I knew for the first time I was home. Where I was home, and that we were together. And someday they would come and be together with me like I was physically left as well. And so I'm having this moment of reflection and this really good feeling. And this is the first time then that I felt sadness, a very profound sadness from God. And as I'm starting to feel this sadness from him, I didn't understand. God, why are you sad? No, everybody's happy. What's wrong? And I remember being told to look again. And I look at the planet and I'm starting to see something moving on it. And some little things are moving all over the whole planet. And as I'm starting to focus on these little things that are moving, these flickerings, I see flames. And as soon as I'm having the realization they're flames, the flames are now engulfing the planet. And now I'm beyond terrified because I just had this whole beautiful experience with my family and I know they're on the planet and now the planet's on fire. And so I'm freaking out and I'm saying to God, God, help, help. I know they love you and they're in flames. You have to do something. What's happening? And I'm just feeling like I'm going to pass out and throw up and my heart's beating through my chest and I don't understand. And all of a sudden in front of me, those glasses, the size of a small vehicle, appear. And I had no choice. And I didn't want to put them on because I knew the last time I put them on, they were God's glasses and I saw something totally different. I didn't have a choice. As soon as I had the realization they're in front of me, I felt my hands again going to reach for the glasses and pulling them on my face. And of course, again, they fit perfectly. And God says, now look. And I didn't have a choice. I had to look. And I was terrified. I look and I could see now very clearly in between the flames was these like mercury, the metal, mercury, it's the viscous, it's like liquidy, silvery is the best way I can describe it. Looks like that consistency and color with luminescence in it, little flickers lifting off of that color in between the flames, unscathed. And I'm looking in even closer so that I can tell what it is. And they're starting to come towards us. The silver stuff is coming towards us. And it's souls, human souls. And they're coming by the droves. They're lifting off from all parts of the earth, unscathed, not hurt from the flames, going past my left and into heaven. And I could feel them. And even though I didn't personally know each one of them, I was connected to them. So it was like I had always known them. And it was a love connection that was allowing me to be able to know them. And they were coming in, and I had this great sense of relief that everybody was saved. And I remember God feeling even more sadness. The only way I can describe the magnitude of sadness at this point from God was I have a friend who lost a son at 26 years old. He was only 26 years old. And as a mother, I love my children more than anything. And I cannot imagine having more sadness than if I lost a child. And this is the sadness that I felt from God, but take that times thousands of children that he had lost. And it wasn't registering with me because I'm still seeing them all coming in. So I'm thinking, it's okay, God. And I say to him, God, like he needs to know, but I'm telling him like a mom, God, it's okay. Look, it's okay. They're all saved. They're coming in. They're going into heaven. See right, behind us. And God has me look again. And this time, as I'm looking at the planet in the flames, I see the souls that aren't lifting off, like they're stuck. They're not lifting off. And God says to me, Erica, hand in hand with the gift of life, I give free will. So I came to understand in that moment that what God was telling me was that he loves each and every one of his creation, his children, so much that free will is the gift of being able to let that human choose that love connection or not. Meaning, he's not forcing any of his kids, you will have a love connection with me, you will love me, and everything. That's what free will is, the most vital sacrifice of a gift that you could ever give, to let them choose. And he was not so happy, oh yes, he loves everyone so much that the sadness was because of the ones that chose to not have that connection. His heart hurt for them because he knew he could not force it. Um, and so that was the most profound lesson for me, is how important. I mean, we think we're so insignificant, but everything I learned, you know, how important each of us are to God. Not just some of us, not just 500 of us, but each and every soul. That important. And so after that lesson, it was like I didn't feel like I could handle anymore. I mean, it was like I am so ready to just go and turn and join all the souls and be reunited. I know I'm home. This is what I signed up for. I'm just so ready. And I just remember turning and starting to like run into heaven. And for the first time, I was allowed to turn around and see it. And at this time, what I saw was a planet. Heaven was a planet. And that was hard for me because I wasn't raised to ever know it as that. But I'm just telling you what I experienced. That's what it was. And I'm starting to run in there thinking I'm going to get to go into heaven and our lessons are done for today. And I remember just being froze and I couldn't move. And this is the point. I'm sorry about my dogs. So this was the first time where I could really feel the sense of humor and appreciation that God has, being taught that God is just like, this, and this, and I'm going to judge you and everything. But in this moment, God had laughter. So he was laughing with me because, here I am. I'm like a kid get running and he stops me and he says, "Oh, no, 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 child. You're not staying. You have to complete your mission and your mission is down there." And I'm looking and it's the planet and it's engulfed in flames. And that's where he's telling me basically, I got to go because I'm not done. And I'm thinking that is not even possible at this point because look, I mean, seriously, what am I going back to? And so I'm having these real human conflicting feelings of emotion. I'm home and how can you do this to me? Separate me. And he said, remember, I gave you the gift of patience. I gave you the gift of beauty, but now I want to give you two more gifts before I send you back. I'm going to give you the gift of knowledge and the gift of wisdom. And I want you to be quiet and listen to the people that I put into your life. And then when you speak, you will take patience, beauty, knowledge, and wisdom, and you will change millions of people's lives. And before I could even argue with God, I felt like I was being stuffed into a tunnel and sent out of heaven and pushed back. And I could feel myself. And this time it was completely opposite of the tunnel that I came up to heaven in. There was no light. There was absolutely no light. There was no stars. It was complete darkness. And I felt confined. I felt like I was standing and I couldn't move my arms. I felt confined. I felt alone. I didn't have that love connection feeling like I did in the tunnel going up. I felt like it was very slow. And I felt like at one point it was slowing down, and I was terrified because I was alone. I was absolutely terrified. And I remember thinking, okay, I got to get out of this. I'm like stuck. Like I was to a standstill in nothingness. And I didn't know how to get going to go down again, because the sooner I go down, I get to earth and I get to finish my mission and I get to go back to heaven. That's all I could think is I've got to figure this out. What I don't know what to do. How do I go get moving again? And as soon as I had that thinking, I heard something, and it was in the very far distance, and it was like a buzzing noise, like a buzzing noise in my left ear. And I thought, okay, well, it's the only sense I have is hearing. So I'm going to focus on that and I'm going to figure something out. And I've got to, get out of this place. And so the more I started listening to this buzzing noise, then it became louder, and it was like, I don't know if they do it anymore, but when I was growing up in the old days, like at midnight or something, when the TV shows were off for the evening, there was like the American flag or whatever, and then they had that bzz. It was almost like this white noise on the screen, like bzz. So it went from little buzzing to this whole buzzing noise, and it was vibrating. And the more I listened to it, the vibrating became more intense. And then the vibrate got so strong that it started pulling me out of this confined tunnel. So it pulled me to the left out of the tunnel. And then I was on my back and I was floating on my back. And it was like this noise was pulling me somewhere, but I couldn't see anything. It was pitch dark. And it's pulling me and it's getting louder and it's getting louder. And all of a sudden, I'm just to a stop again. But this time I'm on my back and I'm just hovering in nothingness. And that buzzing noise becomes garbled, muffling, like if a bunch of people were in a small auditorium and everybody's having a conversation at once, so much so it's so loud that you can't even hear your conversation or anybody else's. It's so loud. It was like muffled noise. And I had this epiphany, oh my God, this sounds like people. And as soon as I had that knowing that this is people's voices, all of a sudden beneath me, I could see the light. Light came on, and I could see all of these people in the darkness. And my light was on, my light force, it came on, and they could see me. And as they could see me, and I'm just hovering like just above them, I could feel their hands, all these hands, and they were pulling me down, all of them. And every finger that was laid on me, I knew it was human, and their energy force was taking my life force out. So the more hands that came on me, the lower I would get down into this crowd. And I knew at that point that if something didn't happen, that I would not have the energy or the life force that I needed to get out. I could just feel them overcoming me. And everything was completely draining and negative. It was you could feel self-loathing. All of the fingers on me, I could feel all of their feelings. And it was hatred, anger, self-loathing. And the one common thread with all of this was there was no love connection present to our creator. So it was all of these souls, these people. And the only reason why they were grabbing onto me is because my life force had came on. I called out to God in that moment. I cried, please help me, God. I love you. Don't leave me here. And just having that love for God connected me to God again. And I felt reluctantly all of those hands, and it felt like it took forever, but each one of them was taking their hands off me and they couldn't hold me anymore. And I started rising above them again. And I just remember talking to God that whole time and telling God, please, I love you. Don't leave me here. You know, I don't want to be here. I love you so much, God. I want to be with you. You know, those kind of things. And it kept making me finally get out of that space and go back slowly to the tunnel that I was in. And I noticed that when I would even stop to like take a breath for a second, I felt myself stop all of a sudden again. And I knew that I was going to go right back over into that space. And so I just kept talking to God the whole time. And eventually I got into the tunnel and I was stood back up like this and I had my hands at my side again. And I eventually started going back down towards the planet. And it was really exhausting, but it just really showed me through that whole thing of how all I needed was that love connection with God, and everything else would be taken care of. But it was so painstaking to go through it. And I think that it was important because if I wouldn't have gone through it like that and felt that, then I wouldn't have understood that that's all that matters is that love connection. And I remember at one point as I'm going back down the tunnel and, you know, Earth was still quite some ways in a distance that I asked God, why are they there? Because when they touched me, I had all the knowledge come to me and knew they were people like me. And I didn't understand. Why did you put them there? And God said to me, Erica, with the gift of life, hand in hand, I give free will. I didn't put those people there. They put themselves there when they chose to not have that love connection. God, everything I've learned about you, you would never give up on, not one of your children, not one. I saw how you hurt. I saw it when they were in the flames on the planet. And I learned that God never gives up on any of us. And do you know that at any time, those people that put themselves there on what I call the edge of hell, they could get out at any time. God didn't put them there, they did. And they could get out themselves by choosing to have that connection with God, like I did. When I cried out to God again, and my light was shining even more, and it was that force that took me away, they could get out at any time as well and choose that. So God wasn't punishing them, they were using their free willpower. And that was the result. And that was important for me to learn because how I learned heaven and hell and everything else worked, you know, in organized religion as a child, that's not what I was shown. And so that was really important to me to experience that. It was a whole awakening for me. And eventually, I did get back down to earth. And when I got back down to earth, I found myself on the ceiling of the emergency room. And I was looking at this point at my body, my shell, on a gurney in an emergency room, and my husband was sitting there crying over my body. And I just remember having the realization that what was going to happen next was I was going to have to go into my body and having this panic moment of there's no way that I can fit into that body. Because remember, our senses aren't limited when we aren't confined to that body. And to feel like you know you are so much more than that. And then to see that, it was like, it's never going to work. I mean, I was panicking and I was crying out to God, you know, begging God, don't make me do it. Don't make me go. I can't do it. Please. I thought I could. I know I have a mission to finish, but you know, I can't do this, God. I cannot do this. And God said to me, I love you. And with me, all things are possible. And then at that point, I remember just being stuffed back into my body. I didn't have a choice. And I could feel everything filling up my toes, filling up my fingers. Myself was like I was unfolding myself inside of this shell, which was me. And that's when I woke up. So there you go.